Yep, that's the day it is. The bench day. Oh yeah, it's a good day to bench day. So yeah, let's do some benching and read Psalm 59. We're closing in on whatever the next number is. If you go in fractions, I don't know. Whatever out of 150 that makes that. Okay, we're getting there. You know, we're almost halfway there. If you want to look at it that way. We're past 50. We're getting close to 75, which would be 50%. So let's do it. Just a normal warm up, starting here. We're going to go up to 230 again because, you really want to own that before you start adding weight. I've done it a couple weeks now, but you almost want it to be like not easy, but you want to earn that next weight jump. So, it is kind of getting easy, not going to lie. That was smooth. Felt pretty good. Other good thing about right now is just working on form, getting the legs engaged. Ooh, let's put the plates on the wrong way today, 'cause that's always fun. You know why you put plates on that way, right? Because you can get your fingers around the lip of the plate, so you put them on that way. But kids, they always want to turn them. I guess as if you can't tell by the size of the plate how much weight you're throwing on there. Nowadays it's hard because of bumper plates makes it hard to know what people are even doing. Who cares? Psalm 59. Psalm 59 is a Psalm of David. It is also another backstory of Saul. And early on, I guess you could almost say like the first time David ran away from Saul. Because, Saul was trying to kill him, throwing spears at him, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, look, if you throw a spear at me, I'm leaving. That's simple. David, I think, came back once and tried to do this again, and then Saul tried to kill him again. It was a whole thing. So, at one point, David, who's married to Saul's daughter, look, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. If someone would just, not the way they've been doing it, because all these companies out there that are making these Bible based TV shows are just Hollywooding it up to this insane degree here. Have just wasting screen time on stuff that's not in the Bible. Look, you can't make this up. This is good enough. Don't be changing it like that. I don't even know. I mean, I would like call these people out by name, but I don't know even who they are because that's how little I care to pay attention to these shows. But I just know there's somebody actually doing some of the things from David and Saul and everything, and it's just like they're doing a terrible job of it, putting things in there that didn't really happen, over dramatizing certain parts of the story, getting the focus away from, what it really is, God's will being accomplished through mankind. And they're making it all about man and the drama and entertainment value and all that. So David, think about though how drama, this is real drama because it actually happened this way in the Bible. David's at his home, married to Saul's daughter. And obviously Saul knows he's there because of, whatever it was, coming back from battle or so on and so forth. So he sends people to basically kill David in his own home. And they've surrounded the house. They're trying to figure out. They were scared because David was intimidating to whatever degree, whether it was one of those things where it's just his popularity, his charisma, or maybe he was like at this point in his life physically intimidating because he was a soldier. And so, they don't go in right away. David escapes, and his wife, Saul's daughter, hid some sort of dummy in the bed to make it look like somebody was in there. And I think she might have even said that he was sick or something. So they finally go in there to kill him and, realize there's nothing in the bed. And by this time, David is long gone. So, I think you could make some good TV out of that without having to mess with the storyline at all. There's plenty of material there to work with. But, whatevs. So that's the backstory to the song. I guess I'll do another warm-up set, and then we'll actually get to the song. So that's a lot to think about already. But hey, this song has a backstory, so let's, gotta get into it. Oh, I forgot to put that plate on backwards. My fault. Oh well, back to my old habits of doing things the right way. That's the weird thing about these kilogram plates. Some are like more and some are less. So it might not even be 230. It might be like 227 or 28 and a half or some weird, who knows. Point is, I'm bench pressing today, okay? So let's actually read some of this. So with that thought in mind, and again, I just, taking it too literally. Let's take this too literally, right? So David's in his house and Saul's whatever bodyguards, whatever, have surrounded the house and they want to kill him. So David's like, you know what? Now feels like a really good time to write a song about it. Probably that's not really what happened, but you get these little short, blunt descriptions of these songs, and it's like a Psalm of David when Saul sent his men to his house to kill him or something like that. It's like, so it's not like he literally stopped mid, hiding or whatever. And, oh, let me write a song real quick, guys. Time out. Like, he probably left, wrote the psalm, reflecting back on the incident in his memory in hindsight. So anyway, deliver me from mine enemies, O my God. Defend me from them that rise up against me. Deliver me from the workers of iniquity, and save me from bloody men. For lo, they lie in wait for my soul. The mighty are gathered against me, not for my transgression, nor for my sin, O Lord. They run and prepare themselves without my fault, awake to help me, and behold, thou therefore, O Lord God of hosts, the God of Israel, awake to visit all the heathen. Be not merciful to any wicked transgressors. Selah. So now that you know the backstory, you understand that when he's talking about being surrounded, this time he's really surrounded. They're all the way around his house. Because, sometimes I've mentioned before, when David or other folks who wrote Psalms, they'll use that metaphor because they're describing a feeling, that hopelessness, that just everyone's against me. And we've all been there, but we know deep down that it's not really true. It's just this overwhelming feeling in the moment. But David, in this psalm, he's actually being serious. He actually was surrounded, just like he had mentioned a few psalms ago when he was on the mountain. He was actually surrounded. So that's not a feeling, that's a reality. And it's not just like some randos out there, if I'm just thinking sort of current situations, you get people out there that are protesting and doing all this stuff, but there are also these, scrawny little computer nerds that can barely hold up their sign. They're really not that intimidating. David is surrounded by actual warriors, actual fighters that could use real weapons and knew how to use them really well. That's a lot different than some dork holding a piece of cardboard on a stick screaming about his beliefs, that his mommy told him. So it's a big difference here. So that's where the pause is. And at the very end, right before that word Selah, be not merciful to any wicked transgressors. He's asking God to not show mercy to these people. And why is he asking him that? Because we also have heard David so many times praising and glorifying God because what? He's merciful and gracious and loving and all those characteristics, all those attributes that we all know so well. David knew them too. And he's like, hey, God, how about this time don't be that? How about, let just justice flow in the situation? Because that's the other side of it, and this is more different talk type of thing, different message, but stuff I still talk about in other not Psalm situations. We think about it like this. God is loving, he's merciful, he's gracious, and at the same time he does that without violating his justice or his holiness or his righteousness. So I know David got that, but he didn't have to worry here about God punishing evil, because that's exactly what's going to happen. Unrepentant, unregenerate, evil is going to be punished because it hasn't been paid for. Sin will be paid for like this, either by the blood of Christ or by the blood of the sinner. If it's paid for by the blood of the sinner, there is no coming back. If it's paid for by the blood of Christ, we have redemption and resurrection, forgiveness. So, it's funny that the gospel is kind of working its way into this just by David's simple request about, please don't be merciful to these people. Well, yeah, they deserve God's wrath at this point anyway. Now, things can change, of course, but that's where they're at. So we'll stop there and think about that for a minute. They're out there sitting there thinking, they're just obeying the king, but maybe they didn't like David either. There's a good chance they kind of jealous of the guy. I mean, good Lord, he married the king's daughter, killed Goliath. He leads the armies out there, and they chant his name whenever they come back and sing songs about him. I'm pretty sure Saul wasn't the only one that was jealous of David. I might be wrong, but I doubt it. Moving pretty quick today. Not gonna lie, it's because I learned a new trick about my feet. So we'll talk about that some other time. Okay. Anyway, let's carry on. So they return at evening, they make a noise like a dog and go round about the city. Now, that's just like a description maybe of the fact that they came to his house at night. And I'm sure they weren't quiet. Because, y'all seen cops and they go busting up in a place on TV or in a movie. Probably the same idea. Behold, they, I love this. Behold, they belch out with their mouths. Swords are in their lips. For who say they doth hear? Again, words. Yelling obnoxious obscenities. But thou, O Lord, shalt laugh at them. Thou shalt have all the heathen in derision. Because of his strength I will wait upon thee, for God is my defense. The God of my mercy shall prevent me. God shall let me see my desire upon mine enemies. So there it is again, another psalm, another observation of, seeing people get what they deserve. And we need to be okay with that. We're so in this weird headspace right now about, bad people suffering the consequences of their actions. And the older I get, the more tired of that I get. When people are, for example, this happened maybe 20 years ago. I don't know. I had a guy in a band, my band, right? And found out some stuff was happening. Said, you're not in my band anymore. You're done. And I was the bad guy. I mean, the guy was doing things that were illegal, immoral, and against God's word. And we were a church band. But I was the bad guy for telling him he couldn't be in my band anymore. I was the one that didn't understand. All right, so I shrugged my shoulders then. Whatever. But now, if I get that kind of flack from somebody for making a decision, which I haven't had to make anytime recently, but if it were to come up again, a situation where, that's what's happening, I'm not just going to shrug that off. It's time to go. It's like gloves off. We're going to go because there's no reason why I should have to deal with that from somebody defending somebody who gets what they deserve for what they're doing. I mean, again, I didn't even do, I didn't handle anything about the legal or any of that stuff. I said, you can't be in my band anymore. I mean, what ends up happening to you based on the other stuff, that's up to, law enforcement, which he ended up going to prison. Not immediately, but down the road. So it's like, again, and I was the bad guy? Right. So now it's going to be a way different reaction from me if people come at me. Because look, this is also the same psalm where he's talking about God's mercy and God being gracious. So don't even come at me with that argument about, well, the Old Testament God versus the New Testament God. We've blown that argument away. We've destroyed that argument plenty of times here, just from the book of Psalms. And here's another example. David knows about God's mercy and grace and loving kindness and justice and all those things. So this isn't David being all this different view of God they had. They didn't. They had the same view of God. They knew he was all the things that he says he is. We're the ones that are getting it wrong because we want to eliminate parts of God that we don't like. We have the full gamut of everything that God is, and so did they. It's just what people chose to dive into or ignore based on their personal preferences or sin. Based on your personal sin, you want to say God is this way and not that way, depending on what situation you're in. No, he's the way he is, not the way you wish he was. So he goes, you see my desire upon my enemies. Slay them not, lest my people forget. Scatter them by thy power and bring them down, O Lord, our shield. So he doesn't want God to kill them because what happens if they die? They're forgotten. That's kind of ironic. Like, yeah, dead and forgotten, or living in a consequence to their sin to set an example to other people to obey God and not be like these people. That's harsh too. I mean, sometimes this is one of those situations where maybe death would be better because then they wouldn't have to suffer the consequences. They call suffer the consequences. You don't say enjoy the consequences. For the sin of their mouth and the words of their lips, let them even be taken in their pride, and for cursing and lying, which they speak. So he's not just generally, hey, these are bad people, I hope God deals with them. He's getting real specific here. And he's building it up. A few more verses to go, of course. So we got to go set number 2 here. And I think it'll be good. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, this psalm has a lot in it, doesn't it? It might take us all the way through the 3rd set today. We'll see. Wow. All right, consume them in wrath. Consume them that they may not be. Now there's a purpose behind this. Let them know that thou, whose name alone is, wait, wrong verse. Let them know that God ruleth in Jacob unto the ends of the earth. Selah. Just say, God, remind them you're God. They thought, right? They thought, but here comes God. Oh yeah. And at evening let them return, and let them make a noise like a dog, and go round about the city. Let them wander up and down for meat, and grudge, if they be not satisfied. So now it's sort of like he's repeating that part from earlier, but with a different outcome. Before they were going about being loud because they were accomplishing evil things. Now they're still wandering around with no satisfaction, not accomplishing anything. Hungry, unfulfilled, unsatisfied. Because that's part of their punishment, part of their. It's almost like when you see a homeless person who is like a little bit older, and you just got to think, what did that person do to get there? Yeah, and I feed people like that. I'm not saying I just mock them or ignore them. I don't do that. But the little bit that you can do for somebody like that, it helps. But they need more than just that. Like, it took a lot to go from wherever they were to ending up there. And then you think of like, well, how? Why? What a waste. What decisions on top of decisions built up to that? That wasn't just a one-time thing. And, you don't go from being, I don't know, owning an accounting firm to being homeless just waking up one day. I'm not going to be an accountant today. I'm going to go be homeless. That sounds better. It's not like that. It's one decision after another, after another, after another. It takes a while to get there. But here's David. I will sing of thy power, yea, I will sing aloud of thy mercy in the morning, for thou hast been my defense and my refuge in the day of my trouble. Unto thee, O my strength, I will sing, for God is my defense and the God of my mercy. So, he knows what's behind it all. God taking care of him, God providing and protecting for him. And, he's using that word mercy. I love that he's still using the word mercy because we know from the situation itself in Samuel, and then we know from, kind of the way he's describing it here in Psalms, that when we read the actual story too, David didn't do anything wrong at all. And yet he's still saying that God defending him is merciful. That's powerful. Because it would be easy to say, I deserve it. I deserve you defending me because I haven't done anything wrong. But he's actually appealing to God's mercy. What is mercy? What is mercy? Come on. Mercy and grace, don't get the two confused. He's realizing that his outcome in life could easily be the same as those guys, if not for God's mercy. His mercy is when you don't get what you deserve. So in his mind, he's like, just like I was talking about, a few decisions or steps away from being, homeless. He realizes he's a series of bad decisions away from being like these guys himself. If not for God's mercy, God defending him, which is really also God's grace, getting something you might not deserve. But, we could easily sit there and say David deserved mercy and David deserved grace here in the microcosm, in the vacuum of this situation. Maybe not in his whole life, but in this situation where these people are trying to kill him because of this, which wasn't wrong. It was, people just happened to like the guy, It's not wrong. He was being obedient in killing Goliath. He was being obedient in leading Saul's armies. He wasn't doing anything wrong. But he's still realizing that he needed God's intervention in his life, that it wasn't about him. And that's a lot to say for a young man. So go out and have a good day if you want to, and try to be like David, I guess.